Bill 54, this is what we think of you. You're garbage like that.
Western separation. The Liberals are terrified of this. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we're talking about how a report has come out. The Liberals are trying their best to quell and stop the idea of Western separation, Alberta separating from Canada. They are terrified. They are scared of this. There's been a dozen or more articles, more than a dozen in the last couple of days. Let's jump into this. With all the Donald Trump tariff talk in the last couple of months, we've got this now. WestJet suspending 9 U.S. routes as Canadians avoid America. What an absolute mess. There's a story I ran a couple months ago, I think it was Virginia Beach, where a lot of Quebecers would go to vacation and now nobody's going down there. Like, this has really affected everything. Jumping back to this Trump-Carney meeting, here's a new angle of them meeting. Just look at this. Couldn't quite get there. I don't know exactly what they're saying. These guys look like they know each other for sure. Just that interaction, the both leaning in, the energy, the shaking of the hands. It looks like, hey buddy, haven't seen you in a while. We got this one. Majority of Canadians feel unwelcome and unsafe traveling to the United States. Going down to America is not dangerous to Canadians. Let's just make that clear. It says here 54% of Canadians surveyed said they no longer feel welcome, and it found that a majority, 52% of respondents agree that it is no longer safe for Canadians traveling to the United States. This is crazy. Just because Donald Trump is putting tariffs on countries, including our own, doesn't make America unsafe. Jumping over to the headline, we've got Carney and the Liberals are absolutely terrified of Danielle Smith making it easier for referendums to get put forward to the people in Alberta and potentially Alberta separating. They are terrified because Alberta pays the bills in Canada. So we'll take a look at all these articles. Western succession is all the rage. How would an independent West fare economically? So there's a bunch of scare articles like this coming out and saying that they wouldn't be able to pay for it, which is absurd. Got this one, Carney to meet premiers in Saskatchewan, June 2nd amid tensions in the West. He is trying his best now, trying to quell this idea of Western separation because it is spreading like wildfire. Alberta's sovereignty group almost has enough signatures for the referendum in 2026. Doug Ford today had quite a bit to say about this. It seems like he's doing his best campaigning to try to bring Alberta and the West back into Canada. Somebody told Doug to say something. Maybe Mark Carney was whispering in his ear.
So we just had a great conversation with the Prime Minister and all the premiers. We all congratulated him on his victory, but also congratulated him on how well he did yesterday and the restraint he showed. I don't think I'd have the restraint that he had yesterday, to be very frank, but we had that conversation with the rest of the premiers. I think Prime Minister Carney did a really good job in really reaching out to the West.
I think we know who Doug Ford voted for.
And I was pretty blunt. I said, it's time that your government starts showing some love to Saskatchewan and Alberta, because as I said, like, the last Prime Minister showed no love. Matter of fact, to the contrary. So it's nice that we're heading out there to Saskatchewan for an FMM meeting.
I think Mark Carney told him to come say this because it'll seem more genuine coming from one of the premiers, especially a conservative premier, versus Mark Carney saying it himself. And it also makes Mark Carney look weak, essentially trying to beg Canadians to come back together. Now this one, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith defends promise of potential referendum on separation. The way this is worded makes her seem like she's in favor of it when she's come out clearly and said she wants to work with Canada and believes in not separating. Let's just make that clear. Toronto Star, so I can't actually view the article, but you can see the headline, Danielle Smith is playing with fire when she flirts with Alberta separation.
I'm a big believer of pipelines, big believer of getting rid of C-69, and we need to unite this country. And the way we're going to unite this country, as I mentioned to the Prime Minister in front of the premiers, show some love to the people of Alberta and Saskatchewan, and let's start diversifying our trade when it comes to oil. Let's start building pipelines west.
If that's how you feel, Doug, you should have been supporting Pierre Poilievre. You know Mark Carney's not going to do this.
East, north, and yes, south as well.
Are you hopeful that you can diffuse the Alberta secession movement with this kind of talk? I mean, I don't know if there's any talk about Premier Smith's potential referendum in
Well, I just always say, united we stand, divided we fall, and that was my message today. And let's continue making sure that we unite the country, not divide the country.
Well, maybe Mark Carney shouldn't have run an entire campaign based on fear versus Pierre Poilievre bringing together the country and building it up. You know, Poilievre's entire campaign was how he can build up every single aspect. I even just saw a new video today that I didn't see throughout the entire campaign. One about John A. Macdonald building an east-west corridor. He was originally talking about the railroad and then talking about pipelines. Mark Carney didn't talk about that at all. Empty platitudes here and there. He only has one plan, and that's net zero. This one on the National Post, Carney has no choice but to listen to Daniel Smith. Notice the tone and change coming from the National Post. The Liberals will have to drop climate obsessions to stave off a referendum in 2026. She aired grievances against the federal Liberal government, from carbon taxes to Justin Trudeau's infamous No More Pipelines Bill C-69. Carney Liberals are going to have to work with Alberta, or there's going to be a major problem in this country. And we've got First Nation leaders here who are pretty pissed off with this whole thing. As Table Salt says here, I generally support First Nations, but wow, throwing a direct democracy law on the ground like garbage is a lot. Separatist rhetoric in Alberta is harmful and divisive for all.
Bill 54, this is what we think of you. You're garbage like that. This is treaty land, and we stand on it today.
This is treaty country, and any talk of separation is really insanity.
Okay, guys, I already went on a rant about this the other day. All I'll say is I think all Canadians should have the same rules, the same laws. No Canadian should have extra rights over others. And certain Canadians shouldn't pay less taxes than others. And we've got articles like this where they're attacking Danielle Smith for her $10,000 visit to Mar-a-Lago, where she was trying to make relations with Donald Trump and helping to save Canada. And we've already pointed out the numerous billions and billions of dollars that the Liberals have wasted on everything. For the CBC to make a hit piece like this is ridiculous. Now this one, talk of Alberta separation gets sympathy, but not support from BC leaders. David Eby is a climate zealot. He is terrified of separation too. He doesn't want people in BC to even talk about it. He's come out very clearly and said he wants to stop all talk about separation in BC. We've got some BC provincial polling data showing the Conservatives are up to 47, NDP down to 45%. So we're seeing a shift here in British Columbia. Unfortunately, David Eby just got voted in back last October, so he's got a 4-year mandate now. If an election were held today, NDP would just offer another $1,000. That's what David Eby did. People got tricked by it, then David Eby retracted the $1,000 as soon as he got into power. In other news, we've got CTV Vancouver saying frustrations rise as human waste on Vancouver streets reaches peak levels. Congratulations, Eby. You're useless and a disgrace as a premier. I wonder if they include these on the hop-on, hop-off tours in Vancouver. On your left, you'll see a steamy Luigi smeared on a wall, and on your right, you'll see a festering pile that's been there for 3 months. We also got bloc leader here, Blanchet, taking some direct shots at Alberta.
For a long time, you've been talking about trying to separate from Canada. Now we're seeing that out in Alberta. For the people in Alberta who want to separate, do you have any tips for them on how to actually get the job done?
Our success so far does not place me in a position to give them tips about what to do, but I could give them tips about what not to do. Not now. The first idea is to define oneself as a nation. Therefore, it requires a culture of their own. And I am not certain that oil and gas qualify to define a culture. But it's theirs to decide if they want to vindicate the right to self-determination. I would never interfere in that. It belongs to them. I would like us to be the first to do so.
This guy's so rude and insulting. He's unbelievable. Oil and gas doesn't count as a culture. How about freeloader? Does that count as a culture? Freeloading off of Alberta's oil and gas? Where the leaders of Quebec could be pushing for projects that would make Quebec rich and prosperous, instead just feeding off of Alberta's oil money. We don't need any advice from him. He's only interested in milking Canada for as much money as possible. Quebec separation is a scam. A culture of freedom, opportunity, merit, and traditional values seems like it would work. Turns out nobody in Quebec wants to live independently in a culture of socialism, atheism, and potholes. When you're being taxed and oppressed to the point of slavery, freedom becomes your culture. Everything else is BS. What is Quebec culture? Bet Blanchet can't name anything other than speaking French. So Blanchet didn't get the memo. He's further dividing things here. This one here, though, Ottawa looking for ways to mend tears in Canada's social fabric, document shows. So this is coming out just yesterday. Senior officials have been looking quietly for ways to bring together Canadians who don't see eye to eye. So get this, they met last November to brainstorm solutions. For all the Liberals listening out there, this is simple. As a proud British Columbian and a proud born and raised Albertan, let me make it clear. Albertans feel like they're getting used by the government because they are. Alberta, BC, and Saskatchewan pay the most in this country. Ontario, Quebec, and Atlantic Canada gets all those handouts, and then they vote Liberal. So the simplest way to solve this problem is cut out all the eco-climate net zero agenda. Provinces that are able to generate a lot of wealth from their natural resources, oil and gas, critical minerals like Quebec, should be paying their own way and getting no equalization payments from the West. Same thing goes for Ontario. And stop blocking Alberta's prosperity. Start there and there won't be any talks of separation. It says here there's a presentation, they're talking about reversing the trend towards polarization, building trust in government agencies. Yeah, we have no trust in government agencies, thank you. Fighting the swell of misinformation and disinformation. You know, it's hard when the Liberals' entire campaign is built on disinformation, slandering Pierre Poilievre all over Facebook. A lot of voters thought he was going to take away women's rights. He was going to privatize healthcare. This is all crap that's getting pushed by the Liberals. Also, Jagmeet Singh was pushing that one a lot. This goes on to say they had previous meetings going all the way back since 2019. They've been worried about this for the past 6 years. It says here it's been a subject of broad and perennial interest. Polarization in Canada associated with the emergence of political echo chambers online. Oh yeah, is that what this is? And in personal relationships, political bias, and the spread of misinformation. It goes on to say it wants to engage and bring back groups veering away from democratic norms. The Liberals are terrified of this idea because this country does not function properly without Alberta, just like this country doesn't function properly without America.
Spoke pretty strongly in support of Alberta and Saskatchewan because they've been ignored for the last 10 years. They've been treated terribly, to be very frank. And I think the new Prime Minister Carney, understands that. And he's going to be out there having great conversations. And just the move, just that one move, bringing FMM out to Saskatchewan, that's a big move.
What would be a big move is Mark Carney announces that there'll be equal representation of Senate seats for the West, for Alberta, and those Senate seats are elected, not appointed like Justin Trudeau just did. Make them all elected so it's fair. Not only that, let's split up the ridings based on population so the West gets more seats in the House of Commons versus having PEI with 4 seats, population of 39,000 per seat, where Alberta's sitting 119,000 per seat. It's no wonder why the West is pissed off in this situation. It has been unfair for decades. They know the problems, but now they're like, oh, we should fix this now because it's a major problem. And this might catastrophically affect the money supply in Canada.
So everyone congratulated him on how he performed.
Are there any discussions on breaking down interprovincial trade barriers?
Yeah, we did. We actually had that discussion. He said by July the 1st.
Doug Ford trying his best here to amend the country. I don't feel like this is sincere. I don't feel like this is just coming out of his heart. I feel like someone told him to say this. Maybe there's a kickback or some sort of help in the future. We do know he's sniffing around for that leadership position of the Conservative Party, the federal Conservatives. With all this, we're seeing articles like this coming from CTV, Alberta separation, not economically viable, Economist says. This is a ridiculous article, by the way. First Nations leaders say Alberta would lose access to resources on treaty territory. Economist Mosh Lander talks about multiple economic blows to consider as part of cost of leaving Canada. You need your own version of the RCMP. You'd have to have your own border control. Last I checked, it seems like Alberta's got the best and most secure borders in Canada. Daniel Smith has already upgraded it. He adds Alberta would need to fund its own national parks, passports, currency, and central bank. Guess what? Alberta is dishing out billions and billions and billions of dollars to Ottawa and doesn't get that money back. They could easily pay for all of that stuff. I showed a graph the other day. Alberta would be the second richest per capita country on planet Earth at $80,000 per person. I believe that's in US dollars, versus Canada today is $55,000. America is $76,000. So yes, Albertans would be way better off without the rest of Canada. The idea that Alberta could go it alone is a complete non-starter. It cannot be economically viable. It is not going to work. We all know that's nonsense. This would be true if it was, say, PEI or another province that just doesn't have the money, the resources, the land, any of that stuff, the people to be prosperous. But Alberta could easily be prosperous on its own. I'm not saying Alberta should separate. I'm just saying they definitely could separate. Going back to Doug Ford here. So his press conference was pretty long. Just check out this clip.
So there's not this big rift that everyone's playing out. I just want to support the people of Alberta and Saskatchewan. They've been ignored for a decade now, and I support them. It's as simple as that.
Did the premiers tell her that maybe having a referendum isn't such a great idea against the backdrop of these annexation threats from the United States? You know, you're saying divided we fall.
Yeah.
Is that did the premiers?
No
say
one brought that up. Maybe that comes on a private conversation. But we're all meeting on June the 1st, June the 2nd, out in Saskatchewan, and we're all united.
That question is ridiculous, saying that a referendum coming on the back of annexation talk. Albertans have been pissed off for years and years. This has just elevated it to the point where they seriously want to take a look at it. You can't fart in someone's face and tell them it smells good. It doesn't matter how much time goes on, it doesn't smell good. Liberal government has had way too many beefy bean burritos.
I'm telling you we are. I know what you mentioned about Alberta, but we're going to make sure we support the people from Alberta and Saskatchewan that's felt left out over the last 10 years. I'll be 100% behind them. And I want to build those pipelines on one condition. They use Ontario steel. So we got to protect the...
This seems very desperate. They told old Dougie to come out here and really put it on thick. I think everyone could be happy if those demands that Daniel Smith laid out, those 5 demands, or initially there was 9 demands, if those get addressed, I think everything is cool in Canada. But the Liberal government has been crapping on Alberta for decades. His base has not forgiven him, and now he's trying to look like a conservative and less like a liberal piece of junk. The signal being sent from our leaders is clear. They show respect only upon realizing the real consequences are in store for them should they be out of line. After Carney's dismal performance yesterday, maybe Dougie's starting to realize he backed the wrong team, and in the process he may have royally screwed Ontario. Because Doug Ford did mention a couple times that he wants quick permitting on critical minerals. That's not going to happen. New pipelines, not going to happen. So Doug Ford is screwed in Ontario as well. Okay. At the end of Doug Ford's press conference, just a fun light moment here. They ask him about Poilievre and whether he supports bringing people together across Canada.
The leader of the federal Conservatives?
Yeah, I think he's asked everyone across the country for a meeting. I have no problem with that. And I'll be more than happy to talk to anyone and work with anyone. That's just so... that's just what we do.
Doug Ford will never say Pierre Poilievre or him. I'll work with anyone. Yeah, anyone. He wants to avoid his name like the plague.
I think he should have run in Ontario rather than running in Alberta. I mean, he's an Ontario MP, and now he's running in Alberta.
Oh, buddy, I'm not going into that bear trap. No way. You just go there.
Did the 401 tunnel come up with the minutes?
If you didn't hear it, do you think he should have ran in Ontario instead of Alberta? That is a bear trap of a question. One thing this election loss has taught us is the Liberals' Achilles heel, Alberta separation. The question is now, what is Carney's next move?